The
meeting is being.
The reason why Shabbir is here tonight is because he has, for many years now, walked a fine line between sort of mysticism and a very keen awareness of what is going on in the world of sort of unfolding events. And it is a great pleasure to welcome him tonight. He completed a book of poems. I think it's his 10th book of poems last year, called All That Remains. And I was just saying to him, it would be lovely if we could launch that, or if he could launch that, because the poems in it are incredibly fine and distilled. It's sort of a distillation, I think, of everything that you have been saying since you started writing. So I'm just going to quickly read a poem to welcome Shabbir, and then I'm going to mute myself and hand it over to you. So this is the poem by Jacques Prévert, and it's called How to Paint the Portrait of a Bird. First, paint a cage with an open door. Then paint something simple, something fine, something useful for the bird. Next, place the canvas against a tree, in a garden, in a wood, or in a forest. Hide behind a tree without speaking, without moving. Sometimes the bird comes quickly, but it can also take many years before making up its mind. Don't be discouraged. Wait if necessary for years. The quickness or the slowness of the coming of the bird having no relation to the success of the picture. When the bird comes, if it comes, observe the deepest silence. Wait for the bird to enter the cage, and when it has entered, gently close the door with a paintbrush. Then, one by one, take out all the bars, taking care not to touch one feather of the bird. Next, paint a portrait of the tree, choosing the finest of the branches for the bird. Paint also the green leaves and the freshness of the wind, dust in the sun, and the sound of the grazing cattle in the heat of summer, and wait for the bird to decide to sing. If the bird does not sing, it is a bad sign, a sign that the picture is bad. But if it sings, it is a good sign, a sign that you are ready to sign. So then you pluck very gently one of the quills of the bird and you write your name in the corner of the picture. That's Jacques Prévert, and now please give a warm hand of welcome to Shabbir Banoobhai.
Thank you, Jacques. Thank you so much, dear friend. Thank you, everyone who's here this evening. I see this in a way as a lovely way to reconnect with life. It's a kind of celebration of life, which, we have almost forgotten how to celebrate. So it's really good to be here. Jacques, you were saying that if the bird doesn't sing, it's not a good sign, and if it does, it's a good sign. Reminds me of something that happened when I launched my leadership book in Johannesburg. The guest speaker there was Aubrey Machiki. Now, Aubrey is one of South Africa's finest political commentators. And he's also a Sangoma. I didn't know that he was a Sangoma until, I met him before the launch. And when he started to speak, and introduced the book, he really amazed me by saying this. He said, I would like to tell the audience that the ancestors have announced their arrival. It is a good sign. So between the bird and the ancestors, I hope we have enough good signs to keep us safe for the next hour or however long we spend together. I'm going to read to you from a wide variety of my written work, and I've chosen poems from across all of them, and uh, I'll read them um, uh, uh, starting now. Our personalities are like clothes we put on, mostly chosen in the dark. There are times we need to change, try something new, but first we have to strip the soul bare to its bones. The next poem is from my last book of poetry called All That Remains. It is raining. A book on the ground is immersed in water, its text dissolving and being washed away until the book is wordless. So where are the words? And is the book still a book without text or a name? And what of the rain? What does it see? And what does it say when water is no longer only water, but a book of hidden words? Another poem, words of love, love words, sometimes swim like fish, water gliding easily over their backs. At other times, they trudge up mountains, carry bags laden with meanings, while the wiser ones, it seems, fly like birds without any sense of time or space or place, or sleep on their backs, pregnant with becoming new and finding themselves. Sometimes one brazenly comes up to you, kisses you full on the lips, and as you protest, tells you, shut up, I've wanted to do that forever. That God scattered like rain, that dance of stars in the sky, unburdening their light, that God insistent like the beating of a drum, that languid petal of time unwinding as it falls, that God forever becoming a blank canvas, that smile that seems to say, now let's see how good a painter you are. Prayer beads, drops of blood, dappled sunlight, morning dew, a string of stars, prayer beads of a soldier counting his kills before he sleeps. the day limping on the crutch of time, a blindfolded wind trying to hurry it along, the silence finally finding its voice, death, its abs rippling, changing its shirt. Even the light takes off its slippers as it steps on the cherry blossoms, falling in showers around it. Last night, I felt nothing could quench my thirst. Tonight, I take long sips of the moon. All that remains, a winding stairway of memories, and the darkness growing brighter than the light. These poems that follow are from a book called Book of Songs. Time is the skin of space, covers the body of thought, allows existence to breathe, love to know itself. It is timelessness reflected in its own mirror. Song of life. The young child at its mother's breast never forgets the many layered warmth on which it rests its head. So much of what we say and do return as a gift to you reflects a song we've heard, sometimes before our birth. Growing older, we post sentries at the doors of grace. Shielding ourselves from hurt, we smother the infant that knows the song of love we need to hear and sing, of possibilities that give life its life, that brings us closer than we might dare to an essential self that breathes without fear of any failing of the generosity of the air. Song of Love. This poem recalls a visit to Rumi's tomb in Konya in Turkey. Song of Love for Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, recalling a visit to his shrine in Konya. You might have wondered as you heard me cry when we met, how a 700-year-old grief could live in a 50-year-old heart, and thought no doubt in that gentle day, fast forwarding into night, that here is an errant bird that has finally made it to its home. Is the river at its source separate from the sea, I ask? The question you say reflects the answer you seek. When love answers love, joy replaces questions. I danced just there where you are standing now, and gathered in one Shams-lit moment, such beauty as only the one who loves knows is possible, that lives as we live and shines with the truth that lies within us. So dance if you can, as one day you must. This madness is all we have to show for the burdens we choose to lose. But first, you need to stop your tears They are affecting the person behind you, trying to take a photograph of love. Song of beauty. The morning will have no recollection of its beauty by the evening. The memory of love cannot survive in isolation, no matter how beautiful the moment. Its light falling in streams of loosely plaited hair remains memorable only when it rests against the skin of the day's consciousness of being in love, being overwhelmed by the sudden soaking rain of knowing, its longing arching like the slender back of a tall tree that achingly follows the sunlight ever westwards until the evening, when it suddenly becomes content to grow still. So still it seems that the day has come to rest in leaves of light. The dark-haired, dark-skinned companion of life, of light, taking away the breath of the now starry-eyed sky, song after song of beauty melting into a single light. Song of the mundane, sprouting in the ears of corn, running down the noses of leaves, drooling from the mouths of flowers. This too is love. The cataracts in the eyes of age, the wrinkled skin of wisdom, the dry white hair of time. This too is love. Multiplying the fruit instead of dividing the land, adding care, subtracting hate. This too is love. Noticing the darkness of the sun or the light that breaks open from a newborn wound. This too is love. Mending a fragile thought, rebuilding hope from despair, washing dishes with one's hands. This too is love. The pebble thrown into a stream with no hope of being retrieved, free to unburden its hardness. This too is love. Meticulously arranging words into a net to catch the early light before it solidifies and it's drowned. This too is love. Picking up the litter when the work for the day is done, so that night will not need to hide it. This too is love. By your own definition, I drink too deeply the blood of roses. Lean on a leaf for comfort. Mistake mysteriously a thorn for a star. When the world curls itself around my fingers, seas gather in my palms, trees sustain the sky, my life lifts to loving, love leaps to living, and without words I strive to answer questions you have never asked. Oh, making you understand is like trying to crush the skull of a mountain. Are you the river, or am I? Do I flow into the sea, or do you flow into me? Why is it when I try to slake my thirst, you disappear? When you try, I appear. You have never stopped calling me. I have never stopped answering you. Whose longing elicited this longing in me? Whose love buried me in sorrow? Even as I am, know the loneliness of separation, as sails of clouds, like memories, flee across the wind-swept sky. You are all that I love, all that I can love. Yet how do I love you, know that I love you, when all that you are remains unknown to me, and all that I am is known only to you? I carry within me the grief of all loving. Would you be different if I knew you? Would I be different? Can a flower know what it means to be a flower? All the silt of my journeying, all the salt of my yearning flows into you, and all longing, every love, all knowing, every loss, everything you are comes to rest in me. In the holy night of power is the still unfolding hour when you cried as we do now, knew and yet knew not somehow what it means to take as slaves those who love you till their graves open wide to let them in, hoping love is their only sin. In the game of loving, there are moments when what matters most is not the state of the pitch, the shine on the ball, or the quality of the opposition, but the catch when all seems lost, the ball falling from the sky, hands outstretched as in prayer, the ball safely held, warm as a hug. For a victim of a flood in Mozambique on the 3rd of March 2000, it was not a yearning for knowledge that led you to the tree, but seeking of another kind, safety from a rain-driven flood. While we slept each day the sleep of death, you stayed awake for days, afraid to sleep. We neither heard your cry nor saw you fall like ripened fruit responding to a primordial call. The sunset-stained sky is a sea of flames. The burnt-out tide lies like ash on the shore. With your grief, I fashion a bird night cannot cage. Its heart, the last blue of the day, in its beak, the leaf of a new moon. When the first slave was brought to the Cape, he looked at the awesome mountain which roots us to an eternal beauty hundreds of years later and affirmed, I am as free and as tall as this mountain, This mountain is more chained than I am. I will climb to the top one day and call the Adhan before dawn. My voice will carry across the seas to my loved ones in a land I may never see again, and they will know that I and the treasures I carry within me are safe and always will be for as long as beauty and this mountain survive. They call you Mr. Steve Biko, now you're dead. And though your death may leave them cold, they who tormented you when you were alive, call you Mr. Steve Biko, now you're dead. So many garlands others have placed around your neck, and you've been given coverage the size of a rugby field. Now you are dead, but you're dead. The best advocate in the land was your voice, And what does it matter what was said? At an inquest, the best advocates in the land may speak for the dead, but they're dead. They call you Mr. Steve Biko, now you are dead. And though your death may leave them cold, they who tormented you when you were alive call you Mr. Steve Biko, now you're dead. Winnie Madikizela Mandela, river, fire, spirit, star. From afar, necklace of flames, tempest, war. In life, orphan, soldier, czar. In death, mother at last, reservoir. Shipwreck. Your praise is home, refuge, shore. Your love, the riches of the poor, ever in need of the arms of grace. Now is not the time to bargain, but to revel in a loss that is the key to unraveling an eternal mystery. Do not fear the shipwreck, you say. When you are already upon the sea, there is nowhere to go but to me. Today, I hugged you in a dream. It felt so real, although you are as far away as you have ever been, and I have no means of being closer, no means of skimming the seas or threading the stars to form a bridge, so that I may stand beside you once again and find you where I know I would like you to be. Today I hugged you in a dream. It felt so real, but then we walked deferentially, as if afraid to test if the warmth was real. Is it ever real, this love we feel and for whom and what we feel it? Is it not a dream we always hug, embracing the earth as we do in days that are as long as nights when we find ourselves wanting? Song of Remembrance. This love I feel for you, hide within myself. Where is its sky? Why is the horizon pain? What becomes of a song afraid to leave the heart? Love me is the unheard cry of the universe. Love me is the only cry we hear. Love me lives on and on, gives trees their rootedness, branches, fire, earth, tenderness, prevents the sun from coming too close to the object of its desire. Why is this preciousness placed so deep that it cannot be found? Where is the logic of hiding it if we can never find it? Ruin the self that hides the treasure, you say. The treasure always lies beneath the ruins. Let go of what you find of you to find me. Clouds let go of themselves, then rain falls. Water lets go of itself, then plants grow. You do not diminish by bearing fruit. Let go. Do not be wide-eyed like suspicion. This love you are afraid to feel, this song you are afraid to sing, is not yours to hide, was mine, mine to give to whom I pleased, given to you to give to whom you please, and I will be there to receive it, to hear it, to sing it with you, a love that has no end. Not all the talk of paradise, not all this wonderland of promise, not all the flames of desire, nor all the fear of some fire can overcome a heart's great need to find you, not in robes of light, not upon a glorious throne, not in heavens that are countless, but in the simpleness of hope, in the endlessness of beauty, in the painfulness of loss, in the senselessness of grief, in ripening or in rotting fruit, in calm or in storm-angry seas, in everything good or bad or in between, in everything we hold on to, where you have to be so that you can be in everything you want to be. Not as easy on our eyes is the other paradise, where everything is soon remiss without love and forgiveness, drying branches, falling leaves, uprooted hopes, futile griefs. What makes us endure it all, but knowing we too must fall, like ripe fruit that has no pride. Once we find we cannot hide our fading beauty, then we see that falling itself sets us free. Not as easy on our eyes is the other paradise, living on through what lives on, loving on through what still loves, finding in the dying light beyond the vision of our sight wood to gather, wood to burn, memories of the endless hurts that haunt us still, till we come to rest, accepting we have done our best. And then the song of grace is heard, the song we first heard at our birth. Not as easy on our eyes is the other paradise. When love burns, we call it sun. When love cools, we call it moon. When love forms, we call it cloud. When love falls, we call it rain. When love blossoms, we call it flower. When love is rooted, we call it tree. When love is unending, we call it sky. When love explodes, we call it star. When love burns, we call it sun. When love cools, we call it moon. When love beguiles, we call it rose. When love cries, we call it thorn. When love is pure, we call it mirror. When love returns, we call it home. When love is unseen, we call it essence. When love is luminous, we call it soul. When love burns, we call it sun. When love cools, we call it moon. When love is ecstatic, we call it heart. When love is detached, we call it mind. When love enthralls, we call it togetherness. When love contests, we call it otherness. When love withdraws, we call it absence. When love surfaces, we call it presence. When love burns, we call it sun. When love cools, we call it moon. When love heals, we call it mercy. When love reveals, we call it grace. When love supports, we call it compassion. When love bewilders, we call it mystery. When love guides, we call it law. When love admonishes, we call it justice. When love burns, we call it sun. When love cools, we call it moon. When love liberates, we call it knowledge. When love fulfills, we call it freedom. When love hides, we call it veil. When love finds, we call it vision. When love provides, we call it duty. When love remains, we call it friend. When love burns, we call it sun. When love cools, we call it moon. When love inspires, we call it hope. When love knows love, we call it peace. When love is pleasure, we call it friendship. When love is treasure, we call it respect. When love strives, we call it generosity. When love revives, we call it gratitude. When love burns, we call it sun. When love cools, we call it moon. When love is guileless, we call it humility. When love sacrifices, we call it altruism. When love abides, we call it happiness. When love resides, we call it wisdom. When love elevates, we call it beauty. When love witnesses, we call it truth. When love burns, we call it sun. When love cools, we call it moon. River flowing, light fading, day escaping, pain surfacing. River flowing, light fading, bombs falling, fires burning. River glowing, light falling, cries rising, blood flowing. River glowing, light falling, cries receding, silence growing. River darkening, light faltering, hope fading, clouds gathering. River darkening, light faltering, land smoldering, sky bristling. River raging, light failing, stream spawning, anger rising, river raging, light failing, river overflowing, rage spilling, river flowing, light fading, river glowing, light failing, river darkening, light faltering, river raging, light failing, river flowing, 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 light fading, fading, fading.
Shabbir, you're muted. I don't know why.
Let me start that again.
Thank you.
Got up this morning with a start, checked my pulse, felt my heart, quickly counted up to 10, slowed down when it dawned on me I could be counting for eternity. Pulled my hair, it wasn't there. Without my spectacles, my eyes seemed obstacles to seeing itself, so put them on. And saw the dark was just as dark. Knew then it is some other sight that makes the world seem so bright. Still, I was tempted enough to count birthdays, books, burgeoning lyrics, all the benchmarks of visibility. What about invisibility? I asked. Where is the young man who should be feeling the heat? Why is he not here to explain what he has done with my eyes, my ears, my face, my hands, my feet? I have gone ahead, I heard him say, to map out new roads, find a new way. Besides, it's not my fault I left. You were never a good host, always starving, both of us thin. Look at you now, unable to walk freely, hardly able to have any fun. Had I known you would come to this end so soon, I would have run away sooner. That's it, I said. I've had enough. Go and don't come back. I'd give you up again if I could for one moment of a love that gets me up every morning with a start and reminds me the whole world is my heart. Got up this morning with a start, checked my pulse, felt my heart, quickly counted up to 10, slowed down when it dawned on me I could be counting for eternity. A safe terrain is not for those whose love, like yours, forever pours in a torrential rain that sweeps away all living things, parenting from the grief it brings, a child in whose heart winter hides a deeper spring, a spring already blossoming in another world, where love is joined with love through loss, and love alone is everything. A safe terrain is not for those who tend to lose their way when all is certain, all is sure, and every direction too secure. In storms too, some find ways of knowing, ways of being the path, or the door to mystery, where the seasons are petals of a closed bud, becoming color, becoming light, becoming song, music, spring, and falling rain, a wondrous thing. A safe terrain is not for those whose love, like yours, forever pours in a torrential rain. This is Ruxana's favorite poem of all the poems I've written for her. I like most the hours when the evening fires have been lit across your sky, and night, like your hair, swirls in scented air. When the symphony of your silence suffuses the shore, and the waves gently bear the blossom of the moon. Time suspended like a bridge over a swiftly flowing river, a seagull sweeping beneath it, a fish in its beak. The walls lament. The wall is speaking in this poem. I have no strength besides the strength you give me. I have no hope besides the hope you place in me. I have no will besides the will with which you build me. I have no courage to match your fear now cemented in the concrete within me. When you are blind, I become blind. When you allow light into your heart, a gate I had almost forgotten existed opens deep in a recess in my spine. So really, I have no sight at all, yet I see what you see in me. I have no dream, not even if there is barrenness around me, to find out if there are orchards growing on the other side. I cannot live unless you live within me. I cannot die, even if you dismantle me, until something in you that created me dies with me. But it is easier for you to recreate me in other forms, call me by gentler names that conceal the harm they perpetrate, than to allow me to vanish without a trace. So fearful are you of losing an essence you believe only survives within you because of me. I have no strength besides the strength you give me. I have no hope besides the hope you place in me. I have no will besides the will with which you build me. I have no courage to match your fear now cemented in the concrete within me. Attempting to separate your hopes from your fears, you inevitably convert your hopes to your fears. Trying to be free through separation, you lose your freedom through isolation. For the beauty of a cloud does not lie in the cloud, it lies in drought. The beauty of the day does not lie in the light, it lies in the darkness of the night. The beauty of infinity lies in rootedness. Can you not see the futility of striving for perfection with a flawed understanding of imperfection? Can you not hear the disquiet in the very silence you are creating? I have no strength besides the strength you give me. I have no hope besides the hope you place in me. I have no will besides the will with which you build me. I have no courage to match your fear now cemented in the concrete within me. Some gifts have no meaning when we possess them entirely, and some ailments are themselves the only cure for the illness they constitute. So, unless blindness itself becomes the cure for a flawed sight, you will rebuild me in your heart, even when you reduce me to rubble on the ground. And if you cannot form me in the full light of your nightmares, you will form me in the half light of your hidden fears. See in the half light of your waking a bridge fall, in its place a wall. See in the half light of your sleeping a mist like veil enveloping the sun. See in the half light of your dreaming the moon reddening, the sky blackening. Oh, when will you learn what lies within you lies within me? Oh, how will you see what lives beyond me lives beyond you? I have no strength besides the strength you give me. I have no hope besides the hope you place in me. I have no will besides the will with which you build me. I have no courage to match your fear now cemented in the concrete within me. This poem is quite a sad poem. It's for a mother whose child chose to drown, literally. A child is drowning. I cannot save the child, playing in a garden full of butterflies, drowning in a sea from which no one returns. High on the mountain, from where the sea descends, how blue was the sea in the morning, how blue the sky. A mother is drowning. I cannot save the mother. I cannot save the mountain. I cannot save the sea or the sky. I cannot save the child drowning in a garden full of butterflies. The child is drowning. The child is drowning the mother. The child and the mother are drowning in a sea, drowning a mountain. The child and the mother are in a garden. The child and the mother are on a mountain. The child is in the sky. The mother is drowning in the sea, drowning in a garden full of butterflies. Yesterday, it hurt. Today, having stretched it a little, the truth fits like a glove. Summer has its own mind. It kicks off its slippers and sprawls on a bed of roses. I opt to sit at a table before a listless computer. Outside, the sky is edgy, as if in need of a haircut. The wind does a lap of honor around the common. The grass, breathing heavily, lifts its ears at its approach. Shadows lie across the road. Stoked, cars run over them with abandon, but they are all in nirvana. All around me, eternity is being threaded and knitted and woven and stitched and stored, hidden away in the linings of leaves, in the sleeves of trees, and the pockets of bees. As the sun slowly dips its head, evening stretches out its neck like a swan, and color takes flight. Words gleam when, as in ice, movement is held in shards of light. The day waits to cross a busy street, eager to get home for the night, but everyone has the same idea. A butterfly staggers halfway across before it fades from sight. Sometimes love is like that. Sometimes love means we have to cease to be. Sometimes love ceases to be. Sometimes we cannot even walk when our hearts tell us to run. The morning asks the night if it slept well. Not that there is anything to be done about it, but that is love. The night replies, it did. Not that it's true, but that too is love. I'll make the bed today, the day says, feeling especially loving. The night, already late, says, I'll skip breakfast. Don't forget to wash up before you leave, and it's gone. The sky nestles under the pillow of a cloud. If it could, it would sleep for the rest of the day. Birds seem to have started their homeschooling. More or less fortunate mothers are strapping their children in cars, wishing they were sending them off to Mars, but no such luck. When school ends and the brats rush back into their arms, they will be forgiven for another day. Once I saw a drenched moon sitting on the bonnet of a car, its knees raised up to its chin. I walked away singing, or was that the rain? Jacques, do we have a bit more time? I have from a a long poem that's it's a prose poem. It's a 40-page poem, but I've selected extracts from it that I'd like to read if we have a little more time.
I think maybe we have maybe a time for one extract, but I think we might be running out of time a little bit.
Okay, so I'll just read the last few stanzas of this poem.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Every point of knowing where light intersects darkness is a point where love is born. Make our certainty a certainty of mystery and of wonder, a certainty of fragility and of bewilderment, a certainty of love, but not necessarily of our own love, a certainty of faith, but not necessarily our own faith, a certainty of a life that exists within us and around us. Help us to understand that the visible is created so that the invisible may be known. The outer is created so that the inner may be known. The finite is created so that the infinite may be known. All is created so that nothing may be known. Nothing is created so that all may be known. Why then do we make so much depend on finding a single moment, belief, or image that will say it all, begin it all, end it all, do it all, complete it all, make meaning of it all, when everywhere is the birthplace of your presence? How much to endure, how much to see, how much to be blind to, how much to hear, how much to be deaf to, how much to give birth to, how much to allow to die, how much to let blossom, how much to subdue, how much to become, how much not to, how much to love, to discover everywhere your presence. And just the last two very small poems. When again I tell you that I love you, it will be raining. I will be crying, but you will not be able to see the tears in my eyes. When I wake up from my sleep, fold away the night, unpack the day, wear timelessness on my wrist, as once I wore time, it will start raining. I will start to cry. You will hold me. There will be tears, yours, but I will think they are mine. When again I tell you that I love you. And finally, you take the pen from my hand and write, enough. Love is enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Shabbir, thank you so much for that reading. Can we please have a hand for Shabbir?
Thank you.
It's been a great pleasure and an honor to listen to you. We're going to have a short time for questions, and then we're going to have a break. And before we have a break, if you could tell us where we can find your work, where we can buy your books, that would be great. But first, can we have some questions? I actually have a question. I think these are poems of such beautiful paradoxes, and they're poems that are meticulously well made, but they are about dissolving, about form wanting to dissolve into everything else, or they're very sad poems about how madness is all that we have. I'm quoting. I don't know, is there anything that you want to say about that, or is all one can do to laugh and say yes? You know, what is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Not uh, not much, Jacques. What I can do is read to you a 4 or 5 line poem. It's a Dravidian mystical poem, and it's from a book called Speaking with Shiva by A.K. Ramanujan. And this is how it goes. For what shall I handle a dagger, O Lord? What shall I pull it out of or stab it in when you are all the world, O Ramanatha? So in a way,
Okay.
I think it answers your question without my having to say much more.
It's a beautiful answer. Thank you. Yes, I get it. Thank you. Melissa, do you see any other hands in the room?
No hands at this point. If anyone does have a question, you're welcome to raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask away.
I just would like to make a small comment, if I may. We're going to have a break now. And I'd really, really like you to come back to listen to the poets who will be reading in the open mic session. It would be incredibly sad if everyone went away now, because if your turn comes later in a session, I would really like all the poets who come later to have the same audience that I've had. And if any of you leaves, it will be for me personally a, 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 a huge loss. So please come back, please stay. I especially have a friend here today, as I said, from the States, Shabbir Banoobhai. He also wants to read a poem, and I would like you to listen to him, and of course to listen to everyone else. And there are many of you, I'm sure, who would love to read, and absolutely, I'm sure your work is worth listening to, and I would love to listen to it personally, and I hope everyone stays for that too. Thank you.
Okay.
And if I can add to that, if you like to receive messages from us, you can put your name and your email address in the chat, and we will add your name to the list. Shabbir, so it's actually often it's difficult to find the work of South African poets. Your work is actually very well curated, and it's relatively easy to find on your website. I mean, I think that's quite an achievement. I think so. If people want to find you, they can. It's easy to Google you and to find your work. I just want to point that out.
And that's where also, anyone can access my books. Everything I've had printed is also available in digital form in my website, which is www.veilsoflight.com, V-E-I-L-S, Veils, plural, of light. Veils of Light is one word, .com, and my contact details are there as well. And even if you don't want to buy them, and I can understand this is a hard and difficult time for people to go around buying poetry books. Generally, if you go into Amazon and you ask to read a sample of a book, they start from the beginning, and then just when they are getting to the point when the book becomes meaningful, they chop off the sample.
Like the Arabian Nights.
What I've done is I've taken the very best of the book and made it into a special sample, so that anyone who doesn't have the ability, I felt, to afford at anywhere in the world, who did not have the ability to even buy a very inexpensive digital book, would still have access to the best of what I had to offer in any book. So without spending a cent, you could actually read the best of every book that's online.
I think Shahina had a question.
Good.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, Shabbir, asking a question about the writing process. When some of your poems are so deeply evocative, and as Jacques mentioned, sometimes you touch really difficult issues like pain or observing pain in others. And I imagine with your taught writing and choice of words that you are literally immersed in your work. So how do you see the light as you're writing? What is your light, and what pulls you through the process?
Firstly, I am Shabbir Bhai to you, Shaina, not Shabbir. Shaina and I go back a long way, people, so forgive me for teasing her. Shaina, the light is actually there, and the poem is already there even before I start writing it. So by the time I've started writing it, everything has actually happened. I'm catching up.
Okay.
Shabbir, maybe just to.
May I?
Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry. It's Stephen here.
Hi, Stephen.
I'd like to know: is it perhaps a personal experience, some of your writings, or is it the experience that you have through others, or what is it? Thank you.
Mainly, they. Well, it's hard to generalize unless I go back and recall each poem and say this is personal and that was. Let's say it's a combination of everything, Stephen. Personal experience as well as a consciousness, and a connecting with the consciousness that reveals insight to me when I basically have, in a sense, taken myself out of the equation at many times. So it's like having a very light sort of a feeling of being light, where you might just have some desire for something, but not too severe a desire that that would destroy that coming into being. I don't know how to express it absolutely, but it's really comes down to connecting with a higher sort of consciousness by by being a light human being, literally, so that you are able to gain insights into yourself and into the world.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've lost sort of touch with whether I'm muted or unmuted. But if I'm unmuted, if there are no more questions, if there are no more hands up, shall we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, don't see any more hands.
Okay. Well, it's been wonderful, Shabbir, to listen to you, and I'm sure we could talk more about poetry and paradoxes. But yeah, let's replenish our cups, our glasses, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. And then, Melissa, if I can hand over to you for the second half to see the hands in the room, that would be great.